So just because I want to be, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Um, we'll go ahead and get started and then we'll have people kind of trickle in. But once again, thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I think that this is something that that doesn't happen often. And especially with college students that kind of go off and find themselves and whatnot. And especially right now, there's that classic scenario, right? You go home to like a small town and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know how I fit here anymore, type of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you these questions and I'll just go through and I'll just say your name again. Feel free to answer as much or as little as you want. So we will start with introductions, name, pronoun, and then with a brief background information. So I'll go first. Elizabeth Medina, they, them, theirs. I work with college students and work on behalf of Iowa College Aid. Wow, I forgot about that for a second. And I am a gear facilitator. So we'll go with Courtney.
Hey y'all, my name is Courtney Reyes and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the executive director of One Iowa, and I was the first in my family to go to college. Thanks for having me.
All right, Ashley.
Hey, I'm Ashley Meyer. I was in the U.S. Air Force for 5 years. I currently have a temp job, which I'm not gonna give any airtime to, while I'm building a coaching business. I just want to support people in their identity, opening the door and telling them it's okay to be who they are.
All right, Sonia.
What happened there?
Hey, Sonia, can you hear us? All right, Jonny.
Hi, Jonny Meyer here. I'm he, him, his, recent college graduate, unemployed, mostly due to COVID. so there's that. Just trying to make it through this whole pandemic disaster, like everyone.
And my pronouns are she, her. I forgot to say that. I jumped back on to say that.
And go ahead, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Bush. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I am a proud double grad, 2 degrees from the University of Northern Iowa. I fully bleed purple. I currently work at the Iowa Judicial Branch in their education training department, working on diversity and inclusion work.
So, Mark, you didn't hear this, but in the background, when you said you bled purple and gold, my wife was like, whoop, whoop. She also went to UNI, so.
Oh my gosh, let's have a party, yes.
Yeah, she said, yes, please.
I'm invited too.
Yeah. Tressa's also a graduate from UNI, so, all right. So do you guys want to go down the list of the questions? Can I ask you, I'm assuming you guys are all ready for any questions thrown at you? Yeah? All right, cool. Courtney, let's start with you. Did you ever experience that classic situation of going back to a conservative town / family and feel like you couldn't be yourself? What advice would you give to navigate through that?
Absolutely. So as they say, I got gay late. So I did not experience that as a college student. And so I was like, maybe I'm not qualified to be on this panel. But I do think life experience as an adult who is in their 30s and trying to go back is a really interesting time too, because it's still really scary, no matter if you're in college or you're 18 or 15 or whatever. It can be really scary to go back to that small town conservative place. I grew up in a little town in southeast Iowa, and I was actually having a conversation with one of my cousins who doesn't live here in Iowa. She lives in California, and she was like, you just need to come back. You need to go home, and I can't believe you don't go there, and I need you to embrace the warts that our family has. And I was like, no, I don't, because my safety is most important. And so navigating that, like what I hope folks can do is, it's okay to say no, and people can be really pissed at you. And that's scary and hard. Like, I don't want to make poo-poo that's an easy thing to do, but I always try to make a decision out of, is my family safe? Will I feel safe enough while I'm there? And that's how I try to make those decisions. So I do believe that families have warts and there's bumps and it'll be weird. But I also know the last time that I went back there, I was sitting at a family gathering. This is pre-COVID. So we were all in a room together, and one of my cousins looked directly at my wife, ignored her, wouldn't address her, and then moved on. Like, was blatantly like, I'm not going to talk to you. And I was like, I'm good. I don't need to put my wife through that. I don't need to put myself through that or my kids through that. So safety first is what I would suggest to, and maybe that's physical safety and that's emotional safety. Like, take good care of yourself. You're worth it, and you're worthy and valid. And I only made it like 8 minutes without crying. So I feel like this is a victory for me. I cry at work.
Tears are welcome. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you as far as the safety component and taking care of yourself throughout this whole COVID thing. I think that that's one thing that we've definitely kind of learned, and it's been in our faces of taking care of ourselves and figuring out what that means. So I would like for Ashley and Jonny to answer that question as well. If you guys haven't found the connection, they're siblings. So
I don't know Jonny at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So
We don't just look similar for no reason. It's biology.
We only came out the same night.
We did.
In
That's
the same
lower
house.
down on the list, but
That's a later story, which I'll give to you.
yeah.
no,
Yeah,
if you guys
assorted
want to
too.
go ahead and
No,
share that.
we'll stick to the script for now, and I'll just answer the question. It sounds like Jonny really wants to tell that story.
Oh, all right.
So being in the military, my first duty station was overseas. I've experienced gayness in other countries, and also under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was like, whoa, I came out when I was 22. Why do I have to go back in the closet now? Very interesting. I was married at the time. But then I was also in the Air Force when it was repealed, September 2011. So another interesting thing, but there was a 10-year period where I didn't really visit home much. And so that disconnect with my family was very much there. And I appreciate you, Courtney, talking about safety, because while that's the first concern, it would not be my first piece of advice. I guess do the check-in. Are you safe? Can you visit home? That's totally a thing that you should go through the process with your family, with those people that support you. But for me, any advice I would give to someone going back to conservative small town Iowa, where I'm from, Muscatine, like Medina, it would be just to be at peace with yourself first. Because when that is occurring, you know when things are just totally off the radar. If something's not vibing with me, I'm at peace with myself. I'm confident in who I am. I know Ashley very, very well. And so it's like, clearly something's wrong here. Maybe something's not safe. And so that's an indicator to me. But the first requirement is that I've got to be at peace with myself to even consider going home, going to that challenging place. So get your support, the tribe around you to be in place, all those supportive things along our journey. Just without those, you can't even ask the question, am I able to go home? Is it safe enough to go home?
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Jonny.
I feel that quite poignantly now, because with the situation that I'm in, work hours were reduced at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I essentially had to go home. I was like, I can't afford rent anymore. So I'm in that place right now, currently. It's kind of wild. I guess for me, it's been really interesting because, as was mentioned before, Ashley and I came out together. She was 22, which is, I didn't even realize, because it was such a, it's always like vaguely traumatizing when you're doing it for the first time with your parents. But I just remember God, how old was I? 15. I was 15 when I did it. And I don't think I would have been able to do it without Ashley there. Truth be told, I probably would have done it much later if she wasn't, but we kind of had each other's backs, and that was really awesome. But being in this situation now, X years later, it's much different. I mean, the climate was extremely tense, very awkward, and it's not always like that. But for our situation, I think we kind of sidelined our parents with it. They were like, it was something they didn't really anticipate hearing, and they definitely didn't want to hear. But now I I experience this as, okay, I've had this for the better part of 10 years now. So I'm just being open with it. I'm being open to conversations progressing if they need to, and if I want them to. Moreover, if that's something that I want to, I don't know, if something bothers me that my parents say about, with the political climate being at the front of everyone's mind these days, there's always a moment where someone says something and your choice is, do I engage on this? Do I let it go? And that's completely your decision. And for me, I just being 10 years after coming out to my parents, I feel like I'm in this place where I'm like, I'm tired of not having these conversations. You're not the one who's going to start the conversation. So I feel like I'm well within my rights to say, I don't feel comfortable with this. We should discuss this, whatever. But keep a support system, though, is a big thing. Stay in touch with your friends, especially now. Talk open and honestly with them, because we all need it more often than not these days. So, yeah.
Jonny, you did not tell the story. By the way, I want to jump in here on the back end.
I did not. It was on purpose. I thought we were waiting till later.
Okay, my bad.
Yep. All right.
Postpone.
So Sonia and Mark, I'm gonna ask you a different question. So what do you suggest to help one discover their most authentic self? We'll start with Mark first, and then we'll go down to Sonia.
So I thought kind of long and hard about this question. Like, I think at the forefront, like, you are the author of your own story, and you all are the narrators of that story. And so when I think about this question, I think about college, I think about my experience. I think one of the things that really helped me discover my authentic self was removing myself from those perspectives, those voices, those family members, and putting myself in spaces where no one knew who I was in the beginning. And then that way I was able to figure out who I was, and that can manifest in different ways. That could be, going to a school in a city that no one knows you, that whether it's in Iowa or out of state. That could be, in a summer, do an internship somewhere where, far off. For me, I did a summer internship in a national park in South Dakota for a summer. It could even mean studying abroad. I had the opportunity to do I'm a former chemistry teacher. I had the opportunity to study abroad and do my student teaching in South America. And it was in those spaces where like no one knew me. There were no preconceptions about who I was, that I was really able to really figure out my identity and kind of share my identity with others. I think back, some of the first people I came out to in a real genuine way was when I was studying abroad. It wasn't my close friends, it wasn't my family members, because I really needed to be the author of that and not have those preconceived perceptions or relationships standing in the way of what I wanted to do. So I know that's not really LGBT specific, right? Like, how do you discover your most authentic self? Like, travel, like do something fun, go somewhere. I would tell that to any college student, but I think specifically for us, we just have to find a space to really own our own identity, like Ashley said earlier.
Yeah, and I think that goes for, just you nailed it when you said it's not just for students in the LGBTQIA community. It's for everyone. So truth be told, I feel like I am my most authentic self, especially after going through the Leadership Institute from One Iowa. And here I am at 33. I forgot my age for a second, 33, and I'm still discovering things about myself. So, Sonia?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Also, can you do a quick
Yay.
introduction?
Yeah, Sonia Reyes, and I'm with the Office of Latino Affairs for the state of Iowa. I'm originally from El Salvador, but been in Iowa for too long, since '97. So, I think to answer the question about finding your authentic self, what I would say it's a lifelong journey. What I would encourage anyone to do is just be open to the fact that you're going to change. I'm 44 years old and I continue to change. The person that I was a year ago is very different to the person that I am now. And so it's very important for all of us to be open to the fact that who we are now is who we are for right now. And we have to love and be tender and kind to who we are in the moment, because it will change. Just change. We can't avoid it. So that's very, very important to just embrace who we are in the moment, and to meet the needs that we have in the moment, because they might change and might be different from the ones that we had before, or last week, or the day before. And also with going back home, I wanted to touch on that really fast, because for me here in Iowa, I don't feel as safe being a person of color, because we're in Iowa and it's extremely white and racist state. Not everyone is, but a lot of places are, because so people of color suffer a lot of microaggressions here in the state of Iowa. So here, being my brown self, it's not always safe depending on what part of the state I'm in. But being queer, I feel safer here. But when I go back to California to see my family, I feel safe being brown, but I don't feel safe being queer because within the Latino community, there's a lot of homophobia and a lot of rejection for people who are queer within your family. I mean, your friends, yeah, they can be gay, but when it comes to the family, it's something different, and that's not unique to the Latino community. So, but because in the Latino community, it's a lot bigger in California, I don't feel as safe as I feel being queer here in Iowa. So it's an interesting difference, which changes my authentic self. So I'm one person when I'm here, and I'm a different person when I'm there because we had to adapt to the environment that we're in. And anyone who goes back home, who goes back to their parents, regardless of what age, and I can tell you from experience, when I go to my mom's house, who lives like 5 minutes from me, I'm a different person, just because we had to adapt. So it's important for us to know, just because we're adapting to the situation, it doesn't mean that we're not being our authentic self. It just happens naturally.
Sonia, thank you for touching base on, as you were talking, of being a person of color, and also being in the queer community. For the Latino community, it's a thing that's very, very strong, as far as strong homophobia. So I appreciate you addressing that, because I think that's also important, an important piece. So this next question is for Sonia, Mark, and Courtney. What can you tell me about the term ally, and what does being an ally look to you? We'll start with Mark, and then we'll go Sonia, then Courtney.
This is such a loaded question, and we could have a 5-hour webinar just on this one question, because there are lots of beefs that I have with this word ally. I think at its core, right, an ally is someone who is supportive of your identity and advocates for your identity. I think that there are positive and productive ways that manifests. I think there's also very shallow and almost unproductive ways that people use, identify as an ally and then not use it. And I think there's also spaces within the LGBTQ community where we need to be allies for others within the LGBTQ community. So I'm not entirely, man, you had to give me this question. I think what I'm really like, just in the world we're living in right now and the work I'm doing and thinking about, I think to be an ally is more than just support and advocacy. Like, there has to be a level of discomfort, and there has to be a level of, an ally is someone who repurposes their privilege to elevate the voices of other people. And I think that is the key, and that is the thing that is rarely done today. And I mean, I don't know what kind of soapbox I want to get on, so I'm going to stop and let the others speak. But I may interject.
Sounds good. Sonia?
So I want to echo some of the stuff that Mark said. If you are, first of all, we don't call ourselves allies. Other people call us allies. So we cannot say, oh, I'm an ally of the transgender community. They have to say Sonia or Elizabeth is an ally. We cannot say we are an ally, because only other people can see it and call us that, in my opinion. And also, if you are someone who considers yourself an ally, but you are a very comfortable person, you have never gotten into an argument, you have never been afraid to lose your job because you stood up for somebody else, or you have never been afraid that you're going to be kicked out of somewhere because you're standing up for somebody else, you cannot call yourself an ally. An ally is someone that stands beside the person that is going through something and puts their privilege, their status, their jobs, their household, everything on the line, just like the person that they're standing next to. But if you're a comfortable person, I don't want to throw shade at anyone, but putting a sign in your front yard, it's not being an ally. That is not enough. That is such an easy thing to do. And I know we talked about that earlier, but before the meeting started, that is not enough. You have to be out there fighting and advocating for those who you want to support. So that is my definition.
I'm trying to see if there's other things that they didn't take my answer on. When I think of an ally, I think of action. It's not a one and done. And like, I did this thing and it was amazing. Look at me. You don't do those actions and expect accolades. You're doing it because you believe in moving this movement forward, whatever that movement may be. I also think of being an ally is, I need you to fight for me when I'm not in the room. And that, and something I often push the people around me, it's like, you want to be an ally to me as a queer mom, like that, you're okay with being an ally to me, but what about the trans community or the Black and queer community? Like, you don't get to just pick and be a part ally, like you have to keep moving forward, and it takes a lot of action. And I loved how Mark said being uncomfortable. And then the other thing, Sonia and I have talked about this. We're often in meetings and we'll speak up and say something. We're putting our names and jobs and voices on the line. And then we have people texting us from that meeting. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much for speaking up and speaking out. But you didn't say anything. You didn't say, Courtney, I agree with you. Sonia, I agree with you. Yes, this is wrong. We have to make a change, and put your name on the line, but you texted me or private messaged me. So that's where I think that action continues to come, and you've got to get uncomfortable. And something I've been clinging to this entire year is changing your mind with new information and being okay with that. You're always learning as an ally and how to be more of an accomplice, and that is going to take a lot of learning on your half. So I know I'm always trying to do it myself. So just because if you're in the LGBTQ community, you don't get a free pass. You have to be an ally and an accomplice too.
So Courtney, kind of going back, when you said, people will text you and you're in the same room and they don't speak up. What's going on in your mind as you're receiving this text, right?
Did you see my physical body of ooh, that's what I'm thinking in my mind of I need you to say something too, because both Mark and Sonia talked about it's power and privilege. And so what are you doing to give up your power in this situation? And because I'm in the LGBTQ community and you're a white cis man that is in a management position at a company in a meeting that I am, and you don't say anything, you have more power than me. And your voice can sometimes carry more weight. So why not amplify mine and help push that along? So it's a lot of frustration, I guess, would be on my half. And I'm obviously clearly a hand talker. And so it's a full body response when you don't text me, just say it out loud.
When that happens to me, when people text me or send me a private chat when it's a Zoom meeting, I ask them, can you please say what you just said, in the meeting? Or I would go as far as even calling them out during the meeting. I'll be like, oh, I think Elizabeth has something to say. Or did you have something to say, Elizabeth? Because sometimes people need to be prompted. And some of the things that people have said is, oh, well, I don't want to use this space and just say something if you're saying something. But I feel like, yeah, there's not enough support for people who want to learn to be allies. There's not enough training. So I'm really glad that you're asking this question, because it's so important to learn, because there's no manual, right? There's not a class you can take in college to learn how to be an ally. There should be one, but there isn't.
Also, this would maybe go back to maybe something that Ashley said about like have a good support system. Have good mentors. So Sonia Reyes is one of my mentors, and I like fangirl every time I get to be on a panel with her. But like you learn things from the people around you that you put yourself around. So lean on those mentors, because we're always learning and growing. So, and Sonia and I are not related, but she likes to tell people that we are, just to make them confused. It's awesome.
I want to be related to you guys too. Jeez, you guys are super cool. So there
Change your last name.
No, I didn't change my last name for my wife, so I'm sorry. So I'll just stick with Medina. There is a question in the chat. Mark, could you repeat the definition of ally? Also, isn't educating yourself an important part of being an ally?
Okay, so my definition was really shooting from the hip, so I don't know if I can really repeat it. There's a recording, so we can rewind later. Isn't educating yourself an important part of being an ally? Absolutely it is, right? I think information is power. Being an ally, like access to anything, whether it's the justice system, whether it's the education system, whatever, you have to surround yourself with diverse people from a diverse representation of identities. You have to ensure that you're including their perspectives in listening to their perspectives. But in order to get that equity piece, you have to ensure that those diverse and inclusive voices are at the leadership table, creating and changing the policies and practices of what you're doing. I feel like I see this phrase, this like meme a lot on social media, which is like, don't build a taller fence, build a longer table. And that's great. But if me, a white cisgender man, is still dictating what's being served on the menu at that dinner table, that's not really an access to justice or access to education issue. So when I think of allyship as repurposing privilege, that means that I need to step aside and repurpose my privilege to elevate other voices who are going to bring that creative kind of change to what and really achieve the goal of what we're wanting to do. So I think I like kind of answered all the questions. Again, just shooting from the hip.
Thank you guys for answering that. I know it's a loaded question, and it's one of those questions where you're like, oh, I guess I don't really know, and now I have to think about it. It's like that question that they ask in interviews, right? Tell us about yourself, and then your mind goes blank. The next question is for Ashley and Jonny. You guys kind of already hit a little bit on it earlier, but how did you navigate the coming out experience? What would you suggest for someone who is going through that right now?
Great question. Excellent question. Ashley, feel free to jump in on this if I'm leaving anything out, because my answer is still developing. I don't think the way that we came out was terribly efficient, but it kind of got the job done. I don't know. I can't even remember. You tell me. It was like I had been dating this guy for like 5 whole days, and a year prior, I had Ashley let me know that she was also in the LGBT community, and I was like, so at some point we're gonna have to tell our parents about this. And we finally were like, all right, we were like kind of psyching each other up for it. And then we were like, okay, let's do it. We went downstairs after having this like pump up session. I don't know what it was, but we went downstairs and our parents were laying in bed. It was like, and I think that was strategic too. We were like, we're not going to do it when they're like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. It's like they're going to be like low energy. So we came in and I think we just got right to it, didn't we? We were just like,
we
Ashley
had to
was-
turn the lights on. They were not only in bed, but I'm quite certain they were asleep. And so it was probably 10 p.m. When you have 4 kids, you're asleep at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
I went in first feeling the pep talk, which again highlights the need for your tribe, your people. You know, you're about to do this coming out thing. It's so daunting, and maybe something you've never talked about out loud. It's like, can I even say the word gay? I've never said that before, and you kind of choke on it the first time. But so we wake them up, and we were like, Mom, Dad, I'm gay, and Johnny's coming in next. He's got to tell you something. So like, obviously his message is going to be the same as mine, but I will echo what Jonny said. Truly, without his support, I could not have done it that night, nor on many nights after that. It takes coming from a place of total security and knowing that this is me. This is not something that is changing. It's coming out. It has to. And so that support, I can't highlight that enough. We're so lucky that we have each other, Jonny. But that's why this conversation is one that's so important, because while we are siblings and we support each other, we've been able to from a young age. I think of all the other young Americans and other nationalities all over this world who have that secret and they want to let it out for the first time. They don't have the support. They're not able to have this conversation. And so I feel like whatever way we can band together to enable coming out to just happen more easily. I also wanted to add that I don't think that coming out experience was my only one. I think it happens every single time. Someone who assumes either I'm a dude because I have short hair, or I'm into guys just because I'm a woman. And
yes, I would also like to
okay.
say I've had the same exact experience on the back end of that, because I was a bus driver in a past life, and I had someone run up to the front door and be like, "I'm so glad thank you, ma'am, for catching me because I have long hair." And he was like, "Oh, sorry." Like, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. But yeah, I remember as soon as Ashley had come out and she was like, "All right, finished that, Jonny, and go." I was like, okay, and yep, me too. All right, good night. So I remember that being a really, really early experience for me. I'm glad that we took the leap, because I completely agree. I don't think I would have been able to do it at that point by myself, or like you said, at least a year after that experience. But things started to change. The climate at school for me completely started to change. I had shut down rumors in years prior because I was ashamed of that identity for so long. And after that, I was like, well, I came out to my parents, so the whole school can know, I guess. And people started asking me about it. And I think that was really, that first coming out experience was kind of opened the floodgate to the rest of the coming out experiences. And it gets so much easier with each successive time. You become a better, more authentic version of yourself. And for that, I truly value that experience.
I echo that. Nothing irritates me more than when someone says, "Excuse me, sir," because I have short hair. I think the last time I was at Hy-Vee and I was getting ready to check out, and some older lady was like, "Sir, I can help you over here." And then I go and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You just look like a guy because you have short hair." And I didn't know what to say. So I was like, uh-huh. And looking back at that, um, that would have been a perfect moment for me to have kind of stepped up and been like, no, like, you don't have to be ignorant. Like, people can have short, long hair. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to make that kind of comment. And so, yeah, I have no idea where I was going with that story. It was very heartfelt. So
That's a lot of work. Like, that's a lot of responsibility to like explain gender to the checkout person and like how expansive gender can be. So I see that, like, sometimes we have to take those opportunities, but I also appreciate of like sometimes you just can't. Like, when the person asks me for the 17th time, like, what does my husband do? I'm like, I don't have a husband. How would I know what he does? Like, you just, like, sometimes you can't do it. So I feel you. You're
yeah,
not alone.
it's very interesting, like at stores, like when I go to American Eagle or whatever, and I like guy jeans because they have bigger pockets. Like, they're just cozier.
Or for that matter, pockets.
For that matter, pockets, yes. So being, being in a store and then not being secure with yourself and kind of feeling that shame of who you are just because you're buying, a sweater, or just because you're buying a pair of jeans. I remember when I first came out, I went to PacSun and I bought this like super cool pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And then I realized that it was a lot more money than what I should have spent. So I ended up taking it back. And the girl was like, "Oh, is this for your boyfriend?" And I was like, "No, it was for my brother." You need to fit into it. So looking back, I was 18, 19 at the time, and that was scary within itself. So one question that I want to ask all of you guys is, actually the next two questions, I would like each of you to answer. What do you think of the phrase when people say it gets better? And we'll start with Jonny, and then we'll go with Courtney, Mark, Sonia, and Ashley.
Oh man, these are tough questions. It's honestly been a long time since I've heard the phrase "it gets better," because I think that was kind of a campaign slogan that was in reaction to a horrific amount of suicides in the LGBTQ community because of intolerance and the stifling, oppressing atmosphere that still exists, honestly, in this country. But that's what I'm reminded of when I hear "it gets better." For me personally, it is kind of synonymous with coming out and experiencing yourself and kind of becoming part of the queer community. Yeah, it's it feels like society definitely puts you into categories that you have to sort of break out of, and when you come out, you start that process. So that's what it is for me. It's your life gets better when you start admitting to yourself who you truly are.
I think you said me next.
Yeah. Yep.
That phrase, I think, again, because I didn't come out young, like as a young person, maybe doesn't resonate as well with me. So I'll keep it brief. Is when I think of that, I like to think of it gets different, because I think things are always like the more confident and more you feel yourself, that you keep moving forward in life. And I think that that's really important. But I think that it's always a good reminder that we're always going to be facing those challenges as queer folks, and like so it just gets different. Like you get a little bit of confidence over here, and then this thing gets hard, but you have this confidence, so this one gets easier and better. So it's kind of a roundabout way to say it, but like just like it, like you're valid, like you are a valid human being is what my overall message would be, is like you're worth it to keep fighting for whatever that better looks like.
Thank you.
I believe I am next. When I hear the phrase "it gets better," yeah, like this campaign's like 10 years old. I can remember seeing the commercial during the first commercial break of a Glee episode, which was just like, whatever, Glee, love.
I love Glee, and I will just say when I can't remember her name, the actress that plays Santana, when she passed away, I like,
Oh, Naya.
yeah, I just watched it and I cried. It was, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, just Glee. So I understand where "it gets better" comes from. I guess just as a mantra to life existing in 2020, like "it gets better" is like hope. Like it's just hope. I was just watching Home Alone before joining on, and like Catherine O'Hara says in the airport, like, it's Christmas, the season of perpetual hope. Like "it gets better" means like, yeah, life is really garbage in a moment, but like if you're gonna like power through it, there's got to be hope. And so that's me.
So I have a different take on that word. I also came out later in life, in my mid-20s, and I was, had 2 children I was married to their father. So I didn't have that, and didn't have to deal with that in high school with coming out. And but to me, the word that phrase, I don't like it. It's very condescending to me. I feel like when if I see a teen or anyone who's struggling, and I tell them, oh, it will get better. For me, I'm ignoring where they are, and I'm not providing I'm basically telling them, suck it up, buttercup. It will get better. So you just had to get through this. And for youth, I've worked with youth for so many years. It doesn't work, because they are in that moment, they are suffering, they're going through something. So for us telling them it will get better, how is that going to help them? They can't see that, when you're at that age and when you're having mental health issues, when you're being shamed, when you're being thrown out of your home, when you're going through all of this, or when you're being bullied at school, et cetera, it's really hard to find or to see the silver lining that us as adults want them to have or to see. So I personally don't like it. For me, what I've always tried to do with youth whenever they reach out is provide them with services and tell them, yeah, it sucks and I am so sorry. And just be there with them in that pain, because that's what they need. They need someone to be like, yeah, this sucks, I understand, and provide them with resources and partner them with people who will provide support for them, because it will get better for some, but not for everyone. So we can't just tell everyone it will get better because it's not the truth for everybody. So I personally dislike that phrase.
So I'm going to interject real quick. Going back to the resources, Ashley, I'll give you, you can answer the question, but definitely wanted to hit on the resources. What kind of resources are out there? Sonia and Courtney and Mark, what kind of sources? And then Jonny, when you were in college, and Ashley, when you were in the military, what resources are there for students and people who are going through this?
So what I can tell you what I do when I have youth that reach out to me, I connect them with different GSAs in their areas if there's any. It's harder when they are Latinos. I work in the Office of Latino Affairs, so I usually get calls from Latino youth. They don't feel comfortable going to a GSA because most of them are white students who don't understand the intersectionality that they're going through, and they don't understand why different Latino families do things differently, and why some things are a challenge for them and or traumatic. So I try to connect them with peers. Whenever I go, I do a tour of the state once a year, and finding LGBTQ resources or allies is always something that is one of my priorities when I do my tours of the state. So I connect them with individuals that I know, that I have met, that will provide them support locally, because I work statewide, so I get calls from everywhere in the state. Here in Des Moines, there's a lot more resources for Latino queer students or youth, but in the rural areas is where it gets more tricky. So I create relationships with adults that can provide them that support, that are Latinos or Latinx, and that can provide them that localized support there. And if not, then I try to find them somebody that will assist them, because it has to come sometimes with that intersectional lens. Depends on what the issue they're having is.
At One Iowa, that is one of the things we do, is help connect folks to resources throughout the state. So we do a lot of connecting individuals to healthcare providers, mental health providers, where it's good to have a social support, but you have to be able to take care of yourself too, and be talking to folks who are affirming of you. So that's a way we provide resources to individuals. And I just think if you can get some quality mental health support, quality health care is a huge way to help grow your confidence so you can continue those other interpersonal relationships. So that's something we do. And then there's another organization called Iowa Safe Schools, and they work specifically with high schools and colleges to form GSAs and things like that. And so they would be another great resource to get folks connected. And I think they have some Zoom right now, Zoom times of hanging out and way to get connected. And it's just finding someone, I think, especially in rural areas, and if you're at home now, is how do you connect to other queer folks and have real life conversations. This is something I do to push folks for who I want to be allies as well, is to diversify your social media feed. Don't have everybody look exactly like you, but that is such a great place to learn and get connected with other queer folks. And if there's people out there educating, so many queer folks put education out online and then pay them, shoot them a couple dollars to their Venmo. They always drop that stuff in there. So I always like to do a two-pronged approach, is diversify and then pay folks for their education. And that can help get you connected.
Yeah, in terms of all of these resources, so good. Courtney and Sonia do great work. In terms of exploring sexuality, in the time I was in college, it sounds so nerdy, but it's true. Just finding books of the intersections of your identities, just to, empathize and reflect on someone else's experience and make connections between yours, compare and contrast. I know one of the resources that really helped me in my college experience, oh gosh, earthquake, was were blogs. Just reading blogs of people who came out. I identify as a Christian, and so reading blogs of the intersections of people who come out and still, are juggling the identity was just so important for me to just read and listen. And so in terms of resources available, yes, go to your college queer student organization. Check out local churches, whether you're affiliated with a religion or not. Sometimes those are, seeing a rainbow flag in a church lawn is a safe space to go to. Even if you don't practice religion at all, they can definitely be a point person to just talk or listen or point you the right direction. And then the internet with an asterisk, right? I think there are a lot of kind of negative resources on the internet as well. But like, I am almost 32 and I'm currently obsessed with TikTok. There are some people speaking wonderful things and sharing great resources about the LGBTQ community on TikTok. So yeah, follow some of their feeds.
Thanks for putting an asterisk on the internet, Mark. Appreciate
it. Jonny.
Hi, hello. To go along with what Mark said, I totally agree with where there's a lack of resources, finding representation of who you are and who you can be is a huge thing. And the internet asterisk should also, I look for it in Grindr, and that was not a good resource. So that's my tidbit for that. But Netflix, it sounds a little passe, but that's a huge resource. TikTok, absolutely. I remember being a kid, the movies were absolute garbage, and they still kind of are. But now there are some really good ones, like objectively good movies where you can see yourself. And I think that's awesome. But where representation and communities that you can find yourself supported, where that's scarce, college, finding counselors is a big one. Like Courtney said, with getting your mental health in check was a huge stone that I needed help with, and that really cleared a lot of mental blockage for me. Planned Parenthood has always been the best resource for me, honestly. I zero judgment. This is like gonna quickly turn into a Planned Parenthood advert, but I don't know, they're so great.
I'll jump on here with military resources that were super helpful for me during some dark times. I visited a counselor, and the thing about the military is that these are just all free services if you're in. So I want to highlight too that we are a resource, we ourselves. And so remember to ask for what you need. If you do not ask for what you need, you cannot get it. So like I said, counseling, just know when you've crossed into that space where you need external help. And then chaplains can be a great resource there too, first sergeants, just those people that you report to in your command. In my experience, people just have bent over backwards to say, Ashley, how are you? What do you need? We support you. You know, the job you do is important, and we just want to validate you. That was my experience. I know it's not everyone's experience, but I would just encourage you to ask for what you need. And then I had something to add on the "it gets better" question. I'll circle back to that because it wasn't a phrase that was particularly powerful when it was going on in the media for me. I was kind of unaware of it, but I'll reflect on it now because it's super hope-based. Like Mark was saying, I love that it's future positioned and it's not, look at all the trauma, look at all these terrible things in the past. And it's like, let's reframe. Let's look at where we're going. Let's have hope for that place. You know, who are the people that we're going to be tomorrow? Who are the people that we're inviting in with us tomorrow? And on that note, I think it's really important to say on here that even people who are not yet supportive, I believe they're doing the best that they know how. Even bullies, even people who might be acting out of violence, they're victims too, essentially, is what I'm saying. A victim to their own just lack of acceptance and maybe some aspect of their own personality or identity, gender, whatever it is, that aggression is coming from somewhere. And so I think we need to remember to be patient as we are explaining to the checker and the store or, you know, wherever we are. This might be, you might be one of the only people to represent our community to that person, you know, and so do that with a gentle heart and with just the desire to teach, not scold, right? Like if somebody's shaking their finger in your face, you're not going to listen, right? At least I know I don't. So have the patience to say, yeah, I'm a woman and I have short hair. So I realize like there's a point where ignorance is just completely like next level and it'll piss you off. But having that patience allows those people to progress as well, and be a little less mainstream, right? Yeah, I hope that helps. I hope that answers the question.
All right.
I'm really glad that you said that, Ashley, because I do think that we need to be everyone with not just with the LGBTQ microaggressions, but with everything, with racial and, you know, economic status. Because like for the example that you gave about the cashier, if a lesbian who likes to dress with, you know, men's clothing, has short hair, goes to a cashier and they get, you know, mistaken by being a male, you know, we are missing an opportunity to educate somebody. You know when someone is saying something to be mean and to insult you, and when it's just ignorance. But also on the other coin, we also have transgender men who are going through their transitions. When they go to the same cashier, they want to be called sir, not ma'am. So if you're that cashier, you're going to be confused as hell because, okay, is it a male or is it a female? How do I know? And then what they end up doing is they don't interact, they withdraw. So I think we had to know that we are all ignorant about something. So we had to give people the benefit of the doubt because you know when someone's trying to insult you and when someone is just ignorant. So thank you, Ashley, for saying that.
So again, I want to respect everyone's time. Thank you, all of you guys. This was awesome. And anytime that I get to talk to you guys, it always makes my heart happy. So, but
Thank you.
yeah,
We appreciate you.
yeah. So thank you again. I mean, I don't know how many times I can say thank you because I'm truly grateful for the resources, and also, you know, you guys be my friends and just having that peer support. I appreciate each and every one of you.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.